When the police failed and the media had no answers, random internet users would figure it out. These are 6 disturbing mysteries solved by 4chan. A mysterious video would one day appear on YouTube. It was a propaganda clip meant to send a message. A Syrian militant group had filmed it somewhere deep in the Middle East, in what looked like a remote desert. The footage showed masked fighters moving through a dusty training camp, their weapons slung over their shoulders, fighting and showing off their skills. There were no road signs, no city skylines, no obvious landmarks, nothing that gave away where this was. But then it landed on 4chan's poll board. Now, poll wasn't exactly known for serious investigations, but every now and then, in between the rubbish, the site had its moments of brilliance. Someone in the thread posed this simple question: where was this filmed? It was an almost impossible challenge. The video offered almost nothing to go on, though within minutes, users started analyzing the footage, breaking it down frame by frame. Every tiny detail, every sound in the background was a potential clue. At first, it was just speculation, but the investigation would soon lead somewhere completely unexpected. They started with the basics. If they could identify even one piece of unique information, something that sets this location apart from the thousands of other desert landscapes in the region, they could start narrowing it down. The first clues came from the terrain. Some users compared the hills and slopes in the background to the topographic maps of Syria and Iraq. It was a very slow process, literally like looking for a needle in a haystack, but it helped rule out areas that didn't match. But the real breakthrough came through when someone noticed a key landmark hidden in the background. At first, it was very easy to overlook: a tall electrical transmission tower. It wasn't particularly large, but its exact shape and size were distinct enough that it stood out. Alongside it, the video also showed 2 small nondescript buildings. If they could match that tower and the 2 buildings to a real location, then they'd have their answer. Immediately, users pulled up Google Earth and started scanning and zooming in on rural areas around Syria. If they could find the tower with the 2 matching buildings nearby, they'd know they were in the right place. And then it happened. A user posted a satellite image of a location that almost perfectly matched the landscape seen in the video. The hills lined up, the buildings matched, even the dirt roads leading into the site were identical. It all fit. The thread exploded with excitement. Had they really just found it? More users jumped in to verify, cross-referencing the satellite images to confirm that this wasn't just a coincidence. And then they realized they had done it. They had just pinpointed the exact location of a secret training camp in the middle of a war zone. Though what happened next was even more shocking. Someone in the thread suggested something that would take the situation to another level, sending the coordinates to Ivan Sidorenko. Sidorenko was a well-known Russian journalist based in Syria, and he wasn't just a reporter. He had built a reputation for tracking down militant bases and passing their locations directly to the Russian military, who would then airstrike them. Over time, he had gained a direct line into military intelligence, making him a highly influential figure in Syria's ongoing conflict. Users began tagging him on Twitter, sending messages with coordinates, hoping that he'd take notice. And then he did. Sidorenko publicly thanked 4chan's poll board on Twitter. His message was clear: their information had been received and it had made a difference. Not long after, an airstrike would hit the exact area. Suddenly, what had started as an online guessing game had turned into something much bigger. The training camp was gone, reports emerged of a successful strike, and within the thread, some users celebrated, believing they had just helped take down a terrorist stronghold. Others were slightly unsettled, as had they really just played a role in real-world warfare? No one knew for certain. The only thing that was clear was that a random group of anonymous internet users had identified a military base, and then, not long after, that base was gone. Hal Turner started his career as a radio host in the early 2000s, but he wasn't just any radio host. His show was extreme. He openly said hateful things about groups of people based on race, religion, and politics. Turner didn't hide his controversial opinions. Instead, he proudly shared them with thousands of listeners every week. But Hal didn't just speak hatefully on the radio. He also ran a website filled with even more extreme content. On his site, he posted angry rants, personal attacks, and threats aimed at public figures, politicians, and entire groups of people. This made him quite a powerful voice within certain extreme online communities. Some saw him as brave, a man who dared to speak out loud where others only whispered. Others, however, thought he was dangerous. Civil rights groups regularly accused him of spreading hate and encouraging violence, and there was a reason for this concern. Turner didn't just say hateful things, he also encouraged real violence. For example, in 2005, Turner published the home addresses of 3 federal judges online, and suggested that a well-placed bullet could solve a lot of problems. In 2006, he went even further, writing on his website that if the elections didn't go his way, he and others would resort to guns, force, and violence. Yet for many years, Turner seemed strangely untouchable. He kept broadcasting and posting online, almost as if he knew he would never get into trouble somehow. But who would protect a man who so openly incited violence and hatred? Soon, 4chaners would uncover the mystery behind Hal Turner's strange immunity, a secret that no one saw coming. In 2006, users on 4chan first started targeting Hal, but not for entirely serious reasons. At first, they saw him as an easy target for their jokes and pranks. They flooded his radio show with fake calls, disrupted his broadcasts, and took down his website with a DDoS attack. But taking his website offline wasn't enough for the 4chan users. As they continued their online attacks and started digging into the back end of his website, they noticed something strange. Emails, messages, and documents connected to Turner that didn't quite match his public image. These clues hinted at a secret that seemed almost impossible to believe. The messages showed Turner communicating directly with the FBI, the very government agency he would often publicly criticize and claim to despise. Initially, many 4chan users believed these emails might be fake or some kind of trick. Why would someone known for extreme anti-government beliefs secretly work with federal authorities? But as they looked deeper into the messages, the evidence became undeniable. One especially shocking email was sent by Turner to his FBI handler. In it, Turner forwarded a death threat someone had made against US Senator Russ Feingold. Turner wrote clearly, "Once again, my fierce rhetoric has served to flush out a possible crazy." This meant that Turner wasn't just randomly sharing information, he openly acknowledged that his hateful speeches had a hidden purpose, provoking listeners to reveal violent intentions. Once these individuals revealed themselves, Turner quickly passed their details to the FBI. Other emails hinted that Turner was not doing this work for free either. In fact, the FBI was paying him for his cooperation. These emails didn't just expose Hal Turner, they exposed the FBI too. When 4chan shared these discoveries publicly, many people felt deeply disturbed. Turner's followers were shocked and angry, feeling betrayed by someone they once trusted. Others questioned the FBI's methods and ethics, asking how far was too far when it came to stopping violent extremists. Soon this scandal would explode online, forever changing Hal Turner's reputation and leaving many wondering if his hateful words had really caused more harm than good. Meanwhile, the mainstream media quickly picked up on the story, as many questioned the agency's judgment, criticizing them for allowing someone to publicly incite violence, even if it was meant to catch dangerous people. Though the scandal wouldn't end just online, Turner faced serious legal trouble too. In 2009, shortly after his ties to the FBI became public, he was arrested for threatening 3 federal judges online. Turner has suggested these judges deserved to be killed, and this time his defense, that he was working for the FBI, didn't protect him. He was eventually convicted and sentenced to nearly 3 years in prison, as it seemed like the FBI was quickly trying to sweep Hal Turner under the rug. This video is sponsored by CyberGhost VPN. Some of the cases we cover today involve people who thought they were anonymous, but on the internet, someone could always be watching. That's why I use CyberGhost. With just one click, it encrypts your traffic and hides your real IP address, protecting you from hackers, trackers, and snoopers, especially on public Wi-Fi. CyberGhost has servers in over 100 countries, so it lets you access content that might be blocked in your region. Perfect for if you want to watch shows or films that aren't available in your country. CyberGhost works on all your devices, keeps no logs, and with one plan, you can protect up to 7 devices at once, so you can easily share an account with your friends and family. Use my link in the description to get 83% off and an extra 4 months free, risk-free, with their 45-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. With over 38 million other users, you too can stay private and protected using my link to try CyberGhost VPN. On April 15th, 2017, protests erupted in Berkeley, California between opposing political groups. What started as a demonstration quickly turned into violent clashes, with fights breaking out in the streets. Protesters carried shields, wore helmets, and threw objects at one another as tensions escalated. In the chaos, a masked man dressed in black moved through the crowd. He wasn't shouting or drawing attention to himself. Instead, he waited for the right moment. Then, in a sudden motion, he swung a metal bike clock at the head of another man. The victim stumbled, bleeding from the wound. The attack was caught on video, but the footage was shaky and unclear. The masked attacker quickly disappeared into the crowd, blending in with the others wearing similar clothing. With so many people involved in the unrest, identifying him seemed almost impossible. The police had no immediate leads. With no clear face, no known name, and no witnesses able to identify him, the attacker appeared to have gotten away with it. But while law enforcement struggled to find answers, users on 4chan's poll board weren't about to let it slide. The investigation started with the only piece of evidence available, the video of the attack. Frame by frame, they examined every possible detail, searching for something, anything that could identify the masked man. At first, nothing stood out. The attacker wore black from head to toe, just like dozens of others in the crowd. His face was mostly covered, and there were no obvious tattoos or markings to distinguish him. But then someone noticed something subtle: his backpack. Unlike the generic ones carried by many of the protesters, his had a distinctive strap design. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As they dug deeper, another detail emerged: the bike lock itself. It wasn't just an object of convenience. It was something he had deliberately brought with him. That suggested planning. He wasn't a random bystander caught up in the violence. He was someone who had come to the protest expecting to use it. But the real breakthrough came when users focused on something even smaller: his glasses. Even with the mask covering most of his face, his glasses were visible in the footage. The frame shape was distinct, and with enough searching, a match was bound to appear somewhere online. Some people began scouring social media and protest photos, while others looked on university websites, convinced that the attacker had to be a student or academic. This theory actually made sense, as many of the mass protesters had ties to local universities, and Berkeley was no stranger to politically active professors. Then, after hours of digging, someone found a match. The glasses, the face shape, the clothing. It all pointed to one person, a college professor named Eric Clanton. The connection seemed undeniable, as the man in the video wasn't just another protester. He was an academic, someone who had lectured students on ethics and justice. But now that they had his name, one question remained: what were they going to do with it? With all of this evidence compiled, 4chan users packaged their findings into an extensive online post detailing their entire investigation. But instead of sitting on the information, they did something that would change everything for Eric. They sent it to law enforcement. Reports began circulating, and soon enough, authorities had little choice but to take notice. 4chan had done what the police couldn't. They had identified the masked attacker. Now that his name was out there, Clanton's situation quickly spiraled. He deleted his social media, likely realizing that every post and image he had ever uploaded was now being scrutinized. But it was too late. His identity was exposed, and the police were closing in. On May 24th, 2017, just over a month after the attack, police arrested Eric Clanton. The once anonymous masked figure was now in handcuffs, facing serious charges for his role in the Berkeley protests. His arrest made headlines, with news outlets covering the bizarre case of a college professor turned violent protester. But then it got even worse for Eric. Diablo Valley College started to distance itself from him. Though they did not comment publicly on his arrest at first, Eric was no longer listed as an instructor on their website, as the school faced pressure to cut ties completely. Meanwhile, his legal troubles grew. At his first court hearing, prosecutors revealed that Clanton had attacked not just one person, but was suspected of hitting multiple individuals with his bike lock during the protest. They presented footage of him swinging the weapon at unarmed demonstrators, some of whom suffered serious head injuries. The most damning evidence came from the 4chan investigation itself, which had meticulously pieced together his identity using photos, clothing comparisons, and frame-by-frame video analysis. Clanton's legal team initially attempted to fight the charges, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Instead of risking a harsh sentence at trial, he chose to take a plea deal. In August of 2018, Clanton pleaded no contest to one count of misdemeanor battery, while the more serious felony assault charges were dropped. He was sentenced to 3 years probation, 120 days in jail, and a requirement to complete community service. For many, the sentence felt shockingly light, given the severity of the attack. But even without a long prison term, Eric's career and reputation were in ruins. Once a respected professor, he was widely known now as the bike lock attacker. His name and face had been plastered across news articles and social media, permanently tying him to the violent incident. Diablo Valley College obviously never rehired him, and any future teaching seemed very unlikely. Eric would have likely gotten away with his crime, but because a bored internet forum decided to track him down, his life was destroyed. Jenna Jameson is one of the most successful adult stars on the planet and has spent several years building her online presence. Millions of followers, endless engagement, and a direct line to her fans, social media, was her connection to the world. But one day, that connection was severed. Her accounts weren't just hacked, they were being erased, piece by piece. Photos disappeared, messages vanished, and password resets failed. And that's when reality started to hit. Someone had full access to her accounts, and they weren't just messing around, they were trying to erase her completely. Jenna didn't have to look far to figure out who was behind it. She had recently fired an assistant, someone she had trusted with access to her online accounts. Now it seemed like that same person was using that trust against her, but even though she suspected who was responsible, she had no proof. And with her account slipping further out of her grasp, she knew she needed help. The problem was, who could she turn to? Most people would just tell her to create new accounts and move on. But Jenna didn't want to start over, and she wanted justice. So instead of relying on usual methods, she turned to 4chan. She went straight to the B-board, where she posted her plea for help, explaining her situation. Her social media account had been hijacked, her photos were being deleted, and she believed her ex-assistant was responsible. She didn't have any proof, but she had a strong suspicion. Now she needed 4chan to do what they do best, find them. But 4chan didn't just take requests from anyone, especially not from celebrities. They were skeptical. For all they knew, this was some elaborate troll or fake account trying to stir up attention. Before they'd even consider helping, they demanded proof that she was really Jenna Jameson. And this is where things took a turn only 4chan could have predicted. They gave her two choices: post a picture of herself with a shoe on her head, a long-running joke used for verification, or post a photo without any clothes on. Most people in her position would have either ignored them or lashed out, but Jenna knew what she was dealing with. She understood that if she wanted their help, she had to play by their rules. She did both. First, she posted the shoe on head photo, proving that she was really the one behind the account, and that alone was enough to win over most users, but others still weren't quite convinced. So she took it a step further and posted a topless photo, which immediately got 4chan's attention. With that, the skepticism disappeared, and Jenna had proven herself in the most 4chan way possible, and now she had their full cooperation. The hunt for her mysterious hacker had begun. Within hours of her plea, users began piecing together clues. Since Jenna already suspected her ex-assistant, they had a place to start, but 4chan didn't just take her word for it, they wanted proof. They began dissecting every detail of the attack, piecing together digital breadcrumbs the assistant had unknowingly left behind, and it didn't take long before they found their answer. Jenna's ex-assistant hadn't hacked the accounts in the traditional sense. When Jenna had trusted them with passwords and account permissions, they had held onto that access long after she had let them go. With this discovery, 4chan shifted gears. Finding out who was behind the attack wasn't enough. They wanted justice, and on 4chan, justice usually comes in one form: doxing. Within hours, the ex-assistant's real name, past aliases, and personal details were exposed for the entire internet to see. Their online history was dug up, their social media accounts were linked, and even their home address was made public. They had spent weeks operating in the shadows, thinking that no one would ever trace the attack back to them, but now they were completely vulnerable. And that's when everything changed. The assistant had two choices: keep fighting a losing battle, or back down before things got worse. With their identity exposed, and the internet turning against them, they had no way out. The fear of real-life consequences, of Jenna taking legal action, of relentless harassment from anonymous users, of having nowhere left to hide, was too much. Whether they voluntarily returned access or simply stopped interfering, one thing was clear: they had been scared into submission. Jenna was able to reset her passwords, lock them out for good, and finally reclaim her accounts. In the summer of 2009, an anonymous user on 4chan's paranormal board shared a strange experience. After attending a friend's party, he found a discarded computer tower near a dumpster in an old industrial area. Curious, he took it home, hoping to salvage some parts. When he powered it up, he found a video file named Barbie.avi hidden deep within the system files. At least, that's how the story goes. The supposed video was then uploaded in several parts, featuring a woman with long curly hair sitting against a plain wall. She appeared to be speaking to someone off camera, but the audio was distorted, making her words hard to understand. But then you see a detail that makes this kind of random and mundane video a little more mysterious. She's missing an arm. Even stranger, for a few seconds, in one of the videos, the screen briefly displays a set of strange letters: B-I-I-D. At first it seems meaningless, just another cryptic clue, but then someone recognized it, and that's when the discussion took took a much darker turn, because BIID wasn't just some random code, it was a reference to something very real, something deeply disturbing. At this point, people were hooked. This wasn't just another creepypasta, it felt like an actual mystery, one that needed solving. The first and most horrifying theory was that Barbie.avi was part of a real-life snuff film, a recording of a woman who had been abducted and mutilated against her will. To those who believed this theory, the missing arm was a sign that she had been subjected to something horrific. Well, that's when they turned to looking further into BIID. A quick search revealed that it stood for Body Integrity Identity Disorder, a rare and controversial condition where people feel like a limb doesn't belong to them. In extreme cases, some even seek amputation, believing they'll never feel whole until the limb is gone. This new discovery seemed to freak the thread out even more, as was Barbie.avi showing someone with BIID, or was something more sinister at play? There was no proof, just speculation, but the idea and the mystery is what made it so interesting. Then, someone posted a breakthrough. A user had begun digging through old medical archives and obscure TV segments, trying to find anything that matched the clip, and finally, they did. The woman in Barbie.avi wasn't a victim of a crime. She was Tamara Klein, a woman who had been interviewed years earlier about her experience living with a singular arm. Tamara, in reality, had lost her arm in an accident with a washing machine. The grainy video quality, the lack of context, and the eerie file name all contributed to the illusion that something sinister was at play. In the end, Barbie.avi wasn't some sinister relic from the dark web. It wasn't a snuff film. It was proof how the internet can find even the most obscure sources of otherwise unsolved mysteries. It's January 2008, and a strange video is spreading all over the internet. In the video, Tom Cruise passionately talks about Scientology, a mysterious religion many people still don't fully understand. He calls himself and other Scientologists authorities of the mind, and claims that they can heal and save the world.
I think it's a privilege to call yourself a Scientologist, and it's something that you have to earn. We have an opportunity to really help for the first time.
Most people find the video unusual, maybe even funny, but nothing too serious, at least at first. But soon after the video appears, something unexpected happens. Scientology, known for protecting its secrets fiercely, doesn't want the video out there. They start using aggressive legal threats, demanding websites to remove the video immediately. Uploads of it vanish from YouTube, and websites showing the clip suddenly shut down. To most people, this is just another strange event on the internet, but not everyone sees it that way. 4chan, and what was becoming the earliest version of the hacker group Anonymous, sees Scientology's actions as something much worse: censorship. They feel strongly that the internet should always remain open and free. Suddenly, Scientology's aggressive reaction lights a fire of anger in thousands of people. Anonymous meets online on the B-board, and here, users begin talking about taking action against Scientology. At first, it's all just jokes and talk, but it quickly becomes something much bigger. Then, on January 21st, Anonymous releases a video of their own, but unlike Tom Cruise's video, this one feels serious, even slightly ominous. A mysterious voice speaks clearly.
Hello, leaders of Scientology. We are Anonymous. We have been watching you, your campaigns of misinformation, your suppression of dissent. All of these things have caught our eye. Anonymous has therefore decided that your organization should be destroyed. We are Anonymous. We are Legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
With these words, a digital war is declared. This message announces the birth of a massive online campaign, Project Chanology. But just how far would Anonymous go to fight Scientology, and what secrets would soon be uncovered about one of the most mysterious religions on the planet? At first, Scientology didn't take Anonymous seriously. To them, it seemed impossible that a group of random internet users could threaten such a powerful and secretive organization. But Anonymous wasn't joking around. They meant exactly what they had promised. Thousands of ordinary people from all around the world joined together under the name Anonymous, and their goal was simple but bold: take on Scientology and make the world aware of its hidden secrets. The first step on Anonymous's plan was a massive online attack. On January 18th, 2008, Scientology's official websites started to slow down. Then suddenly, they crashed. Anonymous had launched a DDoS attack, which sent so much fake internet traffic to the website that it couldn't handle it all and shut down. The message was was clear. Anonymous was powerful, serious, and could disrupt Scientology's activities. But online attacks weren't quite enough for Anonymous. Soon after, something even more shocking happened. Secret Scientology documents started appearing all over the internet. Anonymous leaked internal emails, private information, and confidential documents, things Scientology desperately wanted to keep hidden. These leaks revealed unsettling facts about Scientology's private practices, making people wonder just how deep the organization's secrets went. Yet Anonymous wasn't done, as their online fight suddenly spilled out into the real world. On February 10th, 2008, thousands of members stepped away from their screens to take to the streets in protest. From New York to London to Sydney and Berlin, regular people gathered outside Scientology buildings all over the world. They waved signs and demanded answers. But one strange detail stood out clearly. Loads of the protesters wore the same mask, the iconic Guy Fawkes mask, now famous worldwide as a symbol of freedom and resistance. As protests grew larger, TV stations, newspapers, and websites around the globe started paying close attention. Anonymous had not only declared a war, they had captured the world's attention. Scientology was now under intense scrutiny, but this was only the beginning. One of the first and most shocking revelations from all the leaks was something Scientology called fair game policy. According to the leaked documents, Scientology had secretly instructed its members that anyone who spoke out against the church was considered an enemy and could be treated harshly without any mercy or consequences. Former members described something Scientology called disconnection. If you questioned Scientology or tried to leave, the church would pressure your family and friends, who are often also Scientologists, to completely cut you off. Suddenly, you might lose everyone close to you overnight. The fear of losing your loved ones made many people too afraid to ever speak up or leave. But the pressure didn't stop there. Ex-members reported being closely watched and followed after leaving. Strangers would appear at their homes or workplaces, taking pictures or asking neighbors suspicious questions about them. They received threatening phone calls or intimidating messages warning them not to share their experiences publicly. These methods were designed to frighten and silence anyone who tried to expose the truth. The church didn't just want people quiet, they wanted them completely isolated, powerless, and afraid to speak out. Another major revelation was the church's complex and expensive membership structure. Anonymous leaked documents revealing how Scientology pressured members to buy expensive courses, promising spiritual freedom and happiness. The costs could quickly climb into thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, leaving many members in severe debt. Some people lost their life savings, believing they were investing in their spiritual future. Anonymous also exposed Scientology's aggressive legal tactics. They discovered internal plans showing how they intentionally used lawsuits not just to protect themselves, but to intimidate critics into silence. Former members also described how the church relentlessly pursued anyone who challenged their reputation, overwhelming them with costly legal battles they couldn't afford to fight. But perhaps the most fascinating and bizarre leak of all was Scientology's secret operating thetan materials. Scientology taught members that if they paid enough money and reached higher spiritual levels, they could unlock special powers and truths about the universe. Before Anonymous leaked these documents, only a tiny group of high-ranking Scientologists had ever seen them. Even regular members weren't allowed to know what these teachings contained until they reached these costly higher levels. When Anonymous made these documents public, people discovered the deeply strange beliefs hidden at Scientology's core. The documents spoke of ancient alien civilizations and told a story about a powerful alien ruler named Xenu. According to the teachings, millions of years ago, Xenu brought billions of aliens to Earth, stacked them around volcanoes, and destroyed them with nuclear bombs. Scientology claimed that the spirits of these aliens, called thetans, attached themselves to humans today, causing unhappiness, sickness, and negative emotions. The purpose of Scientology's costly courses was supposedly to help followers remove these alien spirits, freeing them from their problems. This incredible story seemed shocking and bizarre to outsiders, but it was entirely serious to the members who had invested their lives and money into reaching these secretive teachings. The leaks not only embarrassed the church, but also made people question why such important spiritual beliefs required secrecy and large sums of money to access. At the same time, internal Scientology communications also surfaced. These documents provided rare insight into how the church was structured and how it operated behind closed doors. People can now see clearly how the religion carefully planned methods to recruit new members, manage public perception, and tightly control current followers. Another deeply concerning leak involves Scientology's controversial medical claims claims. Documents dating from the 1950s through the 1980s showed that the church made dangerous health recommendations without scientific proof. The church actively discouraged members from seeking professional medical care in favor of their own methods, sometimes claiming that they could cure serious illnesses through spiritual counseling alone. These teachings obviously put members at risk, causing many people to delay or refuse necessary medical treatment, sometimes with tragic consequences. But Scientology wouldn't remain silent. Facing intense scrutiny, they decided to strike back. Though how far would this billion-dollar organization go to protect its secrets? And what lengths would they go to silence Anonymous? Scientology's first step was to label Anonymous publicly as dangerous cyber terrorists. They released statements describing Anonymous as criminals who posed a serious threat not just to Scientology, but to society itself. Church spokespersons appeared on TV and radio, warning the public that Anonymous members were involved in illegal hacking, harassment, and other criminal activities. Scientology wanted everyone to believe that Anonymous wasn't fighting for freedom of speech, but causing chaos and harm. But public statements weren't enough. Scientology also began targeting individual protesters directly. Anonymous protesters reported frightening experiences: strange cars parked outside their homes for hours, mysterious figures following them, and phone calls warning them to stop protesting or face severe consequences. Scientology allegedly hired private investigators to track down the identities of the Anonymous members, hoping to scare them into silence. Next, the church would launch aggressive legal battles against Anonymous protesters. They filed lawsuits and tried repeatedly to involve law enforcement. In several cases, they successfully convinced the FBI and local police to investigate Anonymous members, claiming they had committed serious crimes. The church hoped these investigations would scare the protesters into backing down and break apart the movement. Scientology also targeted major websites hosting leaked materials. They sent aggressive cease and desist letters and filed lawsuits against sites that refused to remove leaked documents. While some websites complied out of fear, others, like WikiLeaks, defiantly kept the documents online, further angering Scientology. Despite their best efforts, the religion found it difficult to silence Anonymous completely. With every attack they launched, Anonymous seemed to grow stronger and more determined. Project Chanology began as a simple act of online rebellion, but quickly evolved into something much bigger. Even though Anonymous had started as a group of trolls on 4chan, their campaign against Scientology changed the way the public saw both organizations forever. Thank you again to CyberGhost for sponsoring this video. Remember, you can use my link for 83% off and 4 months free. And that concludes today's video. If you want something else to watch or listen to, there's a video on screen that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy.